and I made him watch. Well, it's been a while.
It has been a while.
We can get into that a little bit. I wrote a little bit about it,
Okay.
but nothing like crazy. But
okay.
Yeah, we're back at it though, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
Which I will bring up also in what I wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, after how long has it been?
At
least
month or two. I don't think it's been 2 months. It's at least been a month.
A month and some
little,
change.
Yeah, a little month break or so.
Well, after a short little hiatus,
yep,
we are back.
We are. And hello and welcome to And I Made Him Watch, the podcast where I make my husband watch weird movies. I'm your host, Dani Page, and here with me forever and always, somehow still sane, my husband and the filmmaker, Troy Allen. Are you still with us?
Barely.
Barely.
It's been a roller coaster for sure these past couple months.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still hanging on by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah, so we took a bit of a break. We both had oral surgeries. I visited family, and then the election happened. And to be honest, we both have been suffering from some seasonal depression. But what's important is that we're back at it, as always.
Yay! You know, in my honest opinion, if it were not for depression, you wouldn't really know when the good times come. You know?
Wouldn't the good times be all the time, then?
Yeah, but you would never know it.
It'd just be like normal life.
It's like you never know that you're in the good old days until you're thinking back on the good old days. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I also watched the Paul versus Tyson fight. Wasn't expecting to ever watch anything that has to do with the Paul brothers, but damn it, I wanted to see Tyson hit him one good time. But
I was hoping to see a murder.
Wow.
But
He's joking. He's joking. He's joking.
Am I? I don't know.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yeah, that it was the Taylor versus Ramos? No, what was her name?
No, Serrano.
Yeah. That fight was rough to watch.
Amanda Serrano was robbed. She was fucking robbed, and I will say it with my whole chest.
But Taylor did so much damage to her.
Yeah, from the headbutts.
Some of those were accidental.
Oh, look back on her first fight with her and tell me those were accidental too.
But I digress. This movie, it got really weird this time, huh?
Yeah, I almost don't even want to do this episode because this movie was a very hard watch for me.
Really?
It was.
That's okay.
It's just, don't get me wrong, I love the art housey, like avant-garde type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But and our listeners will see here shortly how weird this movie is. But
this is actually one of my favorite retellings of Alice in Wonderland. It's this beautiful and dark. The special effects and claymation just come together in a very mystical and whimsical kind of way, and it's a 10/10 for me every time. It's one of my favorite movies.
So, but that's the thing. Like, is it really claymation though?
Yeah, there's claymation involved. Yes.
Okay, but
I'm not saying the whole film is a movie. I'm saying the claymation of the film was flawless.
Okay, all right, but there is a lot of stop motion.
There's also stop motion. There's live action.
What's weird about it to me is the use of taxidermy in the film.
You use what you can get. You know.
And I get that, and I'm sure like it has its audience for sure. You know. But it's just one of those movies that's like you got to be ready, kind of like Wizards.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for it, because if not, it's really going to catch you off guard. So. Well,
that's kind of the point of this podcast, is to catch you off guard a little bit. That's the point of it.
You got me there.
So, you ready to get into it?
Yep.
Okay. The movie begins with a beautiful shot of a stream in a sunlit meadow. The scenery here is just amazing and very innocent, and I would go as far as saying it's calming. The camera follows this babbling brook upstream until the calmness is disturbed by a rock being thrown into the water. We see Alice sitting next to her sister as she throws stone after stone into the water out of boredom. The girl then ruffles through the pages of the book her sister is reading, which earns her a smack on the hand, and the camera then zooms in on her stoic face, the stoic face of Alice, just very close shot. And she's just got this, can you believe this type of look? Alice, the narrator, and all the voices in the movie were portrayed and performed by Christina Kohotova. I think it's how you pronounce it.
Interesting. I really love the symbology behind her throwing the rock into the stream, because it really does bring to mind the idea of Alice being thrown into this otherwise calm world. But as soon as Alice enters this world, it upsets the flow of everything. So I love that symbology.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the movie is Polish?
It is, I think it is. I wrote more information down at the bottom. We'll get into the background of the movie, but yeah.
Okay.
It is, or Czech. It's either Polish or Czech.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah. We also have the child narrator that reads passages from the book Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and introduces the film as the opening credits begin. In the next scene, we tour Alice's room. We see a collection of toys, forgotten apple cores, puppets. All the while, we hear this tinkling of marbles or stones hitting something and the constant ticking of a clock. 2 dolls have been placed side by side like Alice and her sister as the real Alice throws stones in a teacup. I personally love Alice's room. I love the small details that help us tell who Alice is as a person. She seems very carefree, mischievous, and maybe a little forgetful.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds you of yourself as a little girl.
My room was a mess all the time. Not necessarily crazy messy, but I have ADHD, and I was undiagnosed ADHD for a really long time. So yeah, I would have piles of things, but I kind of knew where everything was most of the time. But it was a little cluttered. But I like a little, maximalist. So
yeah, you got to throw a little chaos into things.
Yeah.
To keep things interesting.
Yeah, of course. As Alice lies staring up at a light bulb, she begins to hear creaking. When she sits up, she is surprised to see a taxidermied white rabbit is loosening itself from a glass box display. We see the term Lepus caniculus. I think it's how it's. You want to try? It's Latin.
Lepus
caniculus?
Maybe? I don't know.
Which is the scientific name for an English hare. But back in the day, they've changed it since this movie was out. The white rabbit is about to free itself and then chews up the nails from its paws. By doing so, it loosens some of its stuffing. He kind of rips open its torso, and all the stuffing kind of falls out of it. And this is taxidermy and claymation and stop animation or whatever.
Yeah, so basically just imagine a taxidermied hare coming undone and his sawdust falling out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really creepy. It is fucking creepy.
The white rabbit then pulls out a hidden drawer with this fancy little coat, hat, and gloves. The white rabbit dresses himself and then smashes the glass with a pair of shears. Alice watches the rabbit stop as the rabbit stops to check itself out in a mirror and notices the tear in its own body. It then pulls out a pocket watch, and the child narrator says, oh dear, I shall be late," said the white rabbit. The rabbit then crosses the room into a desolate field filled with this rough soil and dirt and dining table in the background. So the transition is from room to this vacant, rough-looking field within instants. Like we see him running to one side of the room, and then when we see where that room goes and where it leads, it opens up to this very vast space in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this. I love this movie so much. I'm sorry.
For me, it kind of felt like a
What?
nightmare or an acid
I'm
trip.
sure. I'm sure for you.
Oh man.
The white rabbit makes it to the table in the middle of the field with a clap of its hands. A drawer from the table opens. This will become very, information, or very information, very important information for later. Alice then calls out to the white rabbit. It clicks its teeth at her like together and then closes itself into the drawer, vanishing. Alice runs from the room and into the field, following the white rabbit. She claps her hands, but the drawer does not open for her. She then tries to open it the old-fashioned way and pulls the handle off. She then uses her finger to open the drawer through the knob hole, and the drawer is filled with all types of rulers, squares, and she even pokes her finger with a compass stashed in the back of the drawer. She then pulls herself into the drawer, shrinking herself down to crawl through a space.
Yep, she did. She did do that.
I love this movie so much. It's so weird, and so just the imagination and the thought process behind all this stuff that's happening is just wondrous to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like about it. I like how it is a very unique retelling, but you still have those very classical Alice in Wonderland nods and elements and stuff. So,
well, I mean, that's what I love about film, to be honest, because you can take a story that's been done hundreds of times, which, it's a classic story, but you take that story and you tell it in a way that only you could tell it. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it original.
Oh, yeah. Yes. The drawer leads Alice into a dungy-looking cellar where she follows the rulers and protractors, not projectors, along with the white rabbit's stuffing. She comes across the white rabbit eating sawdust stuffing from a pot. It checks the time, and more stuffing falls from his body. The white rabbit then uses a safety pin to pin his stomach together. Alice calls out again, and the white rabbit freaks out yet again and runs from her. Like, child, take a hint. The white rabbit does not want to talk to you,
rabbit's like,
girl.
Scram. He doesn't want to talk to you.
Nope. Alice tries to eat some of the stuffing herself, but I guess it's not her thing because she's not into it. She then pries open the white rabbit's safety pin hoard. That girl is so nosy. So when I say safety pin hoard, the white rabbit was eating at a table and pulled the drawer open, and there was just all kinds of different size safety pins in this drawer, just cram packed into this drawer. So she opens it, being nosy. Girl. In fact, as she continues to plunder the white rabbit's space, she's hit in the head with a rake. She actually steps on a rake and it hits her in the head. It forces her back into the pot that breaks, causing Alice to fall through the pot and into an elevator. I was a little high when I watched this. Just so you know, I was a little under the influence when I watched this, but you kind of need to be a little bit.
I think that's what the filmmakers intended. Like, there should have been a disclaimer at the beginning of this movie. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. If you are on like LSD or Quaaludes or something along those lines, like probably not for you.
Probably not for you. No.
But yeah, her eating the fucking sawdust stuffing is kind of gross. But that rake got her good.
Yeah, the rake.
Like, it turned into like some sort of fucking Three Stooges skit.
Do you know those TikToks about like spoiled children getting humbled and stuff? Mm-hmm. Like, that was this type of moment. That's what that was. That was that type of moment.
Yeah, she got bopped.
So as the elevator begins to lower, we get to see some very interesting imagery. The first being a sign that reads 3 patro, which I think means patron or patron in Dutch. I tried to do a little research about what language it was, but Google can only do so much. Then a series of levels appear. The first few levels appear to be toys set up randomly. These are all Alice's toys from her room. We see puppets, different wooden animals, and some playing cards, just to name a few. Next is 2 patron, and we see just rows of jars. These jars are full of different preservative, vegetables, fruits, lots of olives, peppers. There's also jars of jams and fruits as well. But as the elevator goes lower, the items in the jars become a little more strange and eerie, like bread with nails in it, snails, strange mushrooms. Alice even grabs one of the jars as it passes, and then she pokes through the cellophane and sticks her finger into it. She pulls out and examines a mixture of marmalade and tacks.
It's like taking your lunch to work, right? And you leave your lunch in the refrigerator. And some people like, hey, put your name on it or somebody else will eat it. And other people are like, no, I'm just going to put fucking thumbtacks in it. What the fuck is wrong with you, bro?
I mean, I guess that would keep people from eating your food, though. Like,
I mean, they could eat it one time. That's it. That's all. It's all over after that.
The last level is 1 patro. These levels of shelves are taxidermy on them. There's just a bunch of taxidermy. There's a mix of reptiles and mammals on the shelves, very normal looking animals. But as we go lower, the names become more aggressive looking, and there are some mixed together, like some different animals sewn together, different heads and skulls, skeletons with full heads on them. It's yeah.
This is the work of that doctor from the Human Centipede, huh?
Oh God. I had a conversation about the Human Centipede movie a few days ago. So, topical. The elevator begins to pick up speed, and we see a flash of one sign that says Prezimi and some other word. I put it in slow-mo when I was watching this, and I was going frame by frame and try to figure out what the second word was, but I have no idea what it was. But I think Prezimi means landed in Bulgarian. So I'm pretty sure it meant like this is the end, or like you've landed, like as a warning, or it's implied anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the whole elevator scene to me was so fucking strange, and it was like, I don't know.
Well, it's the rabbit hole.
It is. Yeah. It is.
And in any transition of when you watch an Alice in Wonderland movie and you have that classical transition from real world to the Wonderland, there is this moment of just a long moment of travel in some way, whether it be like following actually through the hole. I think there was a UK version of Alice in Wonderland from like the 2000s, and I think she goes through like the tube in London, like it's a subway type situation. And then in this one we have an elevator that it's an elevator, which is normal enough, but then as you slowly emerge into these levels, things get stranger and stranger and stranger, and I am here for it.
Yeah, it's like that old euphemism of like, you start researching something and you call it like going down the rabbit hole of that, and the more you look into it, the stranger things get. So I thought it was really good metaphor, I guess, for the strangeness of the world, I guess. Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I love it. It's a fun time. Alice then falls from the elevator and through a roof into a large pile of leaves. She looks up and the roof fixes itself. Just like that. Just done. Alice climbs from the pile and down to a door which is locked. The white rabbit pops up, checks his watch. Alice calls to him again and he runs away again. He crawls into the pile of leaves and disappears. The leaves then begin to move by themselves into a drawer that the white rabbit has escaped through. So there is this very plain room, very square room with one door and this pile of leaves, and the white rabbit disappears, and all these leaves start to vacuum themselves up into the drawer. And once they're gone, it reveals this table in the middle of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Alice tries to open the drawer again and pulls the knob off again. She's then able to open the drawer and finds a teeny tiny little key. And she goes back to the door and compares the key to the keyhole in the door, and it's clearly that it's too big. But Alice looks down, she finds a small door within a big door with a small keyhole. She uses a key to unlock the door, and the door is just the right size for Alice's face. She peers through the door and into the storybook garden and watches the white rabbit. Alice calls to the white rabbit, and he jets off again.
Yep. Honestly, like the leaves going into the drawer thing, to me, I thought that was very well done. I honestly, I don't know how they did it. But it's almost like, because at first I was like, okay, maybe they put the leaves in the drawer and then like blew them out with like a leaf blower or some shit. But it's too well put together for that, because that would be too chaotic. So it's almost like they had each individual leaf tied to like a fucking fishing string or something. I don't know.
I think it's stop motion with that scene, and they took a little by little or moved the leaves gradually towards the drawer, and then just removed some. Like they just slowly, like frame by frame by frame, did that, and that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it's 1988, so.
Dude, that would have taken forever.
It was a lot of fucking leaves, wasn't it?
It was.
That was like a whole like yard worth of leaves.
Bro.
Alice goes back into the room and places a key on the table. She then goes to close the drawer, and as she does, an ink bottle rolls inside the drawer. Alice takes the bottle and places it on the table and then closes the drawer. She then drinks the ink, turning herself into a doll. She goes back to the small door, but it's locked because she left the key on this table. It's the classical moment in the story. Alice tries to get the key back but cannot reach it. She jumps into the table, causing the drawer to open again. A cookie then falls down, circles the table, and lands in Alice's lap. She eats the cookie and is able to grow, but a bit too much.
Okay, so you find a strange dark liquid in a drawer. Your immediate thought is to taste it. Genius. Pure genius.
She's Alice.
Also, that cookie probably stale as fuck, bro.
It looked hard, didn't it?
It did.
It sounded hard when it fell.
Bro,
that thing didn't crack or anything.
No,
it's solid.
Mean, hell, you could carve that bitch, turn it into a ninja star. You know? You got, man. But she's crazy, though. She just be eating and drinking shit.
Alice takes the small key and reopens the small door, this time revealing the storybook beach. Alice watches the white rabbit and reaches her arms towards her, and he smacks her hand with his oars. A defeated Alice tries to open the door once again and begins to cry when she can't. Her tears begin to collect and fill the room. The water gets too deep and Alice can swim around in it. A rat then swims up Alice's head with a chest and uses her head like a land refuge. She gets tired of the rat after it sets her hair on fire and dunks her head into the water. The rat swims off with his chest as the white rabbit rows a boat into the room. The white rabbit almost crashes into Alice, but then pushes off her head. Uses her head to push off.
I loved how the rat just sets her fucking hair on fire, and she's just like, okay, initially, and then oh man, that part to me was just so wild. So strange.
I like it. The white rabbit leaves behind some of those fancy cookies, and Alice eats one, which turns her back into a doll. Some pigeons try to attack her, but Alice fights them off. Things from the elevator in Alice's room begin to float by, and Alice pulls herself out of the water and onto a floating wooden table. She then opens the drawer of the table and finds another key, but this one is the perfect size for the big door. Alice rose. Alice rolls. Alice rows over to the door and unlocks it. The water rushes from the room and carries Alice off. She's able to make it to shore as the rest of the things float down the stream, including the white rabbit.
Bye, Felicia.
Then Alice approaches the white rabbit and tugs on his coat. The child narrator says, "Mary Ann, what are you doing here? Run and bring me some new scissors," as the white rabbit. The narrator then narrates a conversation between Alice and the white rabbit, and Alice tries to explain she's not Mary Ann, and the white rabbit is like, "Please just do your job, Mary Ann. Please, girl. Please just do what you're paid to do." Anyway, Alice is roped in to going to getting the white rabbit's scissors.
I mean, Rabbit was getting pissed about his scissors.
Mm-hmm. And at this moment, Alice is the doll version of Alice.
Mm-hmm.
So, she doesn't look like a normal human girl. Doll Alice walks through a meadow towards the painted storybook panels of a beach. She peers through the broken panel and into a room. It is the same room as before, but it's now filled with different objects. There's still a table, but there's a block castle on top of it. There's a chair with two leafless trees, some gardening equipment, and 2 pairs of galoshes. Oh, and a little greenhouse with lettuce. It's kind of cute. It's kind of cute.
I definitely got the vibe that Alice does not like the rabbit.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Alice is infatuated with the rabbit, and that's why she keeps following him, even though he's like, "Girl, bye."
True, but I think she's also mad at him because he keeps like
maybe a little bit
off.
irritated. Yeah, that's understandable. So Alice walks into the room and finds a doorbell on one of the legs of the table with a nameplate Lupus Caniculus. Caniculus, Lupus Caniculus, displayed in Alice's room. She rings the bell, and the drawer for the table opens, and a ladder extends down to Alice. She enters the block castle, and the interior is like a chicken coop or like a rabbit coop. Alice then helps herself inside and begins to explore the white rabbit's home. She finds a bedroom, finds a rabbit poop in the bed, ew, and a closet full of rabbit furs. She then pulls the knob from the table and pries it open with a butter knife and finds shears and a bottle of blue ink. The Alice then drinks and becomes big again.
I think she's got a drinking problem is what it is. She loves her booze and she's just looking for a fix. That's why she keeps drinking shit.
I mean, Carroll was crazy. So, I mean, he had a lot of influence of drugs and stuff. And in the original, there is a lot of, like, of that too as well. And I guess it is hinted that Alice kind of has a problem with just eating and drinking things she finds, because that's not...
Yeah, that's not normal.
Yeah, that's not normal. The white rabbit begins to look for Mary Ann. Alice then blockades herself inside the white rabbit's room. But the rabbit is strong. It begins to ram the door, knocking away the furniture, and is able to get one of its hands through the door, but Alice prevents it from getting through. The rabbit then sews its damaged hand back together and leaves the house. The white rabbit then tries to enter the house through the window, and Alice pushes him from the window, causing him to crash into his greenhouse.
I mean, it was a real, like, you know, here's Johnny type scene.
Yes, it was. He was reaching for her.
Like, dude, I was fearing for her life. And with them damn scissors, he was like...
Yeah. The white rabbit then goes back up through a ladder with a handsaw. He attacks Alice, but she is able to knock him to the ground again. She then begins to take the building blocks and things from the castle and throws them at the White Rabbit. The White Rabbit then blows a whistle, which calls around the coach driven by a rat with a skull for a head and led by two birds with cat skulls. The rat opens the carriage door, and these skeleton animal creatures come out with glass human eyes. Like a ridiculous amount of these things come out of this small coach, by the way. Like there's like 5 of them. And it's all like clowns coming out of a clown car. It really is. The White Rabbit sends the creature with the alligator's body and the skull up the ladder. As the narrator reads, "Mind your step, Bill. Go up the roof, Bill." Alice listens as the White Rabbit directs Bill to go down the chimney, and as she does so, Alice stuffs her foot into the fireplace. This sends Bill shooting from the house, crashing to the ground, losing all his stuffing.
All his stuffing.
Mm-hmm.
He is...
Bill dead.
Yeah, he's unstuffed.
Mm-hmm. I had a burp, sorry. The White Rabbit then begins to throw stones and rocks into the house at Alice. These stones turn into cookies, and Alice eats one, turning herself back into a doll. Alice leaves the building block castle and finds the White Rabbit stitching up Bill. She then sneaks away from the house and climbs down the table. The animals catch Alice trying to escape and chase after her. Alice runs through a small door and barricades it from her side. The White Rabbit then chops the door down with an axe and sends the skeleton animals after her.
So, I love how this movie just suddenly turned to like a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
And, Alice is fearing for her life in this. I mean, I would hate to be Alice.
Yeah, it would. I would hate to be Alice in this situation. Yeah.
I mean, you're being chased by a bunch of taxidermied animals.
Yeah.
And a fucking white hair with a pair of scissors.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like,
Mm-hmm.
No thanks.
No, it's scary. Doll Alice is attacked and cornered by the creatures, and they make her walk a plank into a pot of milk. When Alice falls into the milk, she turns back to her normal size, but is trapped inside the body of a doll. The White Rabbit then drags her off by the ankles and into an old pantry. Alice is then able to rip from the doll's body, but is trapped inside the pantry. She does find a jar of cookies and a bottle of ink, but swears them off. Weird shit goes down in this pantry. Eggs begin to hatch small animal skulls that slide away. A piece of bread sprouts nails, and a can opens overfilling with bugs. A large piece of beef wakes up and transfers itself into one jar to another. Another can opens up to a key.
I don't even know. I don't know. I don't even know what to make of this.
You're just speechless, huh?
I'm just stuck. I don't know. Like, oh man. Hey, at least she's trying to kick that habit though of eating and drinking shit.
She swore off the cookies and the ink. Yeah.
That's really hard to do, to quit cold turkey like that.
Mm-hmm. It is. So Alice uses the key to unlock the door and finds herself in the base of a staircase in a hallway. She begins to wander the hallways and passes a rat from before, trapped and killed in a trap. So the rat that swam on her head and made the fire and stuff earlier, she finds it stuck in the rat trap, dead. So she comes to a door and knocks. When no one answers, she lets herself inside, leaving her shoes outside. Inside the room, a sock eats through the wood floor, leaving large holes. Alice watches as the tube socks crawl around and wiggle through the holes in the floor. She walks to the table and tries to open it, but like always, the knob comes off and Alice falls back. When she falls, she crashes into 2 tube sock worms, but blows them back up and sets them free again.
Also, I forgot to mention, so when she's in the pantry and the can opens to reveal the key, the key is in like some juice stuff.
Yeah, it's like sardines.
And she sucks the juice off this key.
Yeah, she does. She does lick the key.
So
it's weird.
Them damn white kids. I don't know, man. Crazy. Fucking gross, bro.
Kids? What the fuck?
And poor rat, biffed it in the damn mousetrap.
Well,
he probably just trying to get some cheese.
Life is dangerous.
I guess.
So in the drawer, Alice finds a jar with a set of eyes and dentures. A tube sock then takes the eyes and the teeth from her. And then it curls up and the narrator reads, "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. Alice turns away from the caterpillar, but it calls out to her and tells her that it's something important to tell her. Alice turns around and the caterpillar says, "Keep your temper." Alice asks, "Is that all?" And then the caterpillar then tells her, "One side will make you grow, the other side will make you shrink." Alice asks, "Side of what?" And the caterpillar answers, "The mushroom," meaning the wooden mushroom that he sits on. Alice then cuts a chunk from each side of the wooden fungi.
Wood. That's so tasty.
As Alice tries to leave the room, her own socks slip from her feet and try to burrow into the floor. Alice grabs them and struggles to pull them out, but she's able to and quickly puts them back on her feet. But she dropped the mushroom bits and has to dig through the wood and sawdust to find them. As Alice leaves the room, she watches the white rabbit appear through the drawer and yoinks the scissors from the table. On the other side of the door, 7 fake fir trees stand in an empty room. When Alice takes a bite from a wooden mushroom, the trees shrink. And when she bites the other side of the mushroom, they regrow.
Now, is it the trees shrinking and growing, or is it her shrinking and growing?
In the visual, it's the trees, but symbolically, it could be her, but she doesn't turn back into the doll, so I think it is the trees. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
Maybe it's both. Maybe she can do both.
I mean, I'm just curious because the caterpillar said one side will make you shrink and the other side will make you grow. So,
it's still an interesting way to, get that visual and that historical Alice in Wonderland, like mushroom stuff, like one side makes you grow, Anyway, Alice hears the cries of a baby and finds a window. She looks through the window and finds a tiny house shaking and things flying from it as the baby cries inside. Alice then eats a bit of mushroom and the house grows. Alice walks around the house as a plate flies from it and hits her leg. Plates and cookware begin flying from the house and into the room. A knock comes from a large door in the room, and Alice hides behind the house as one of the animal creatures come into the room and up to the house. The fish footman knocks on the door, and the frog footman answers, and they exchange an invitation for Alice from the Queen. Any input?
No? I love how Alice just kind of seems like unfazed by this, like up to this point. I mean, other than when she was crying in the room and it filled with water, but she's just like, this is just another Tuesday. This is just fine.
Yeah, it's fine. The frog footman tosses the invitation into the house and begins to eat flies in the room. Allison opens the door to the house and sees the white rabbit feeding a bottle to something in a crib. Alice calls out to the white rabbit and he begins tossing plates at her. The white rabbit then tosses the baby to Alice and it turns into a piglet. The piglet runs off and Alice lifts the house and finds an invitation. Like, she literally lifts the house up, this like doll house looking thing, and finds the invitation. And when she opens it, it's blank. Alice then chases after the piglet.
Yeah, I'm sure the piglet is very scared
Mm-hmm.
at this point.
Poor little Peaky.
Yep.
She rushes down a staircase just in time to see a door closing. When she peeks inside, the room is dark, with a table and puppets set up. When she opens the door, the light turns on and puppets come alive, with the narrator reading, "No room, no room," cried out the Mad Hatter and the March Hare, and Alice closes the door again. She then opens the door and slips inside, watching the Hatter try on different hats, and the Hare tinkering with a pocket watch stuffed with butter. Alice sits down at the Mad Hatter, and the Mad Hatter asks her, "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" After drinking his cup of tea, the Hatter declares he wants a clean cup and demands they all move down, so they do. The Mad Hatter pulls the White Rabbit from one of his hats, and the White Rabbit pulls out his pocket watch and declares, "Oh dear, she'll behead me. Oh dear, she'll have me beheaded, sorry." The Hare then butters the White Rabbit's watch before it runs off, with Alice calling after him. The Mad Hatter then says he wants a clean cup, so they all move down again.
So, Hatters, back in the day, to my understanding, they dealt a lot with, like, Mercury.
Yes, that's the...
Yeah. And then the whole, like, why is a raven like a writing desk?
Yes, a nod to Poe.
Yeah. So I've heard that there was no answer to it. Like,
but Poe wrote on both.
Right, but when Carroll wrote that, he never intended for there to be an answer.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've heard.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Like, why is a raven like a writing desk? Because Poe wrote on both. But yeah, that's I love the whole like Mad Hatter part.
Oh, you like that part?
Yeah.
Okay. The Mad Hatter part is frustrating for me. Because I mean, this pattern continues a little while longer while Alice sits there watching them. Like, it's a continuous pattern. They're doing the same thing over and over again. Finally, a fox fur pulls itself from a teapot and slinks down the table and licks all the teacups clean, and then slithers back to the teapot. Alice then stands up from the table and heads from the room. And as she tries to leave, the Mad Hatter and the March Hare call, "No room, no room, no room." Alice peeks inside one more time and sees the Mad Hatter pulling the White Rabbit from his hat again. The White Rabbit then rushes from the room, pausing a moment to wipe butter from his pocket watch and onto Alice, and runs up the stairs, and Alice follows. So at the door of this room, the White Rabbit like wipes the butter off his watch and then wipes the back of his hand onto like Alice's like dress or something and then runs away.
Oh man, they're so funny.
Alice finds herself in an attic space filled with laundry lines. Just rows and rows of white linen and white clothes hanging up. She finds two card cutouts dueling each other in the front of a storybook panel of a garden. As the duelists head off to the right, or out of sight, the fish footman crosses and disappears, and then the card cutouts of a queen and king cross walking together along with the White Rabbit. The duelists return, and the queen declares, "Off with their heads." The White Rabbit then cuts their heads off with his large scissors.
See, and that's what's fucked up about it, is because obviously the queen, she's like psychotic. Talking about off with her heads and stuff. And the White Rabbit's just like, okay, sure, okay. He just does it.
Yeah, that's what he's supposed to do. That's his job.
It's fucked up.
After all that, Alice walks to the painted panels and wanders around through them, finding herself at different sizes as she walks through the panels. At one point, she finds the Mad Hatter and March Hare once again playing cards. The queen comes around and declares, "Off with their heads," and the White Rabbit cuts their heads off with his scissors. The March Hare and Mad Hatter then swap heads. The queen then invites Alice to play croquet with her. Alice follows the queen back into the room, and the queen demands she picks a flamingo. After picking their flamingos, the queen starts off the game of croquet. When Alice tries to play, the flamingo becomes a real-life chicken and the balls become hedgehogs. It's not very fair.
I know. Poor chickens.
Alice is handed a script and the narrator says, "You're to learn this off by heart," said the White Rabbit. Alice then tries to chase after the White Rabbit again, and she comes to another door and enters it, finding the king and queen and all of the other creatures set up like judges. The narrator then reads, "Let the accused step forward," said the king. Alice then steps up to the bench, and then the trail Alice then steps up to the bench, and the trial begins. They question Alice about their tarts, and Alice lies and says she hasn't eaten any. The king then takes Alice's script and tells her to start reading the script here. When she does, it's a confusion and apology for what she did. Or a confession and apology for what she did.
I think Alice is, I think she's a serial killer.
Oh, God.
I think that's what it is.
I mean, she's definitely causing some chaos and havoc in the Wonderland, you know?
Yeah.
But she then tells the court she's not sorry for anything. The king then declares that she will have the most severe punishment. Alice is still not having it and is fighting back. She says all the tarts are there and then eats one. When the queen shouts off with her head, Alice begins to eat more of the tarts. The king and the queen then begin to scream off with her head as Alice begins to shake her head wildly. She then wakes up in her room under her playing cards. As she looks around her room, all her things seem to be in place, except when she looks at the lepus caniculus display. The White Rabbit is not there, and the display is broken, and the nails at the bottom of the display. Alice reaches in and pulls the hidden drawer open and reveals a pair of large scissors, and the narrator says, "He's late as usual. I think I'll cut his head off." Though Alice thought Alice herself.
See, and that's why I think she's a serial killer. She's talking about cutting his head off.
Well, maybe she was the queen after all.
She, obviously, I mean, I personally think that the whole thing is, was just in her mind. Like she's...
Well, it's her imagination, yes.
Right. And she's a very sheltered child. And which we see in the very beginning, because she throws the rock in the stream, right? And what does the woman do? Didn't she
She didn't do anything for throwing the rock. It's when Alice starts to mess with her book, she pops her hand.
Right. So she wants to do something. She's a bored child, and she's not given that opportunity to have that thing, So she creates this world in her mind, but in the end, it comes to find out that she I think she is the queen.
It's a good it's a good hypothesis.
Yeah,
it's definitely. I mean, I think she's all the characters, honestly. Because it is her imagination. This is Alice within her own imagination. This whole is like a imaginary dream state, The 1988 film Alice was directed by Czech filmmaker Jan. You want to give it a try?
I think it's Jan Švankmajer.
Jan Švankmajer.
Sure.
This was his first featured film. Known for his distinctive style, Švankmajer brought his expertise in surrealism and stop-motion animation to this unique adaptation of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. The film combined live-action sequence with stop-motion animation, creating a eerie and dreamlike atmosphere. Unlike most versions of Alice in Wonderland, which tend to lean towards whimsy and fantasy, Spank? I
Svonk. We'll just call him Mr. S.
Mr. S. We can just call him John.
Jan.
Jan.
Yeah.
Jan's Alice embraced a much darker and more unsettling tone. In my personal opinion, this is the best film adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. It's still whimsical and dreamy, but some harsh and unapologetical. It's still whimsical and dreamy, but has some harsh and unapologetic imagery, which I love every time I watch this movie.
I personally I would have to go back and read the original, the Adventures of Alice in Wonderland or whatever, to really get an understanding of when Lewis Carroll wrote this. How did those words come across? Did it seem more unsettling, or was it more supposed to be whimsical and stuff?
Have you ever read the Alice in Wonderland books?
No.
Any? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have a copy. I think I have a copy of both. I think I have Alice in Wonderland and then Alice Beyond the Looking Glass. In my opinion, I'm not sure if I would say it is a very dark story. It is a very challenging type of story, if that makes sense, because it is a lot of an imagination, a lot of, made up silly things. And there is a bit, I would say there is a bit of an undertone of unsettling type of vibe to it, because it is about a young girl, being whisked away to this strange land.
Right.
But it's still a good story.
Yeah.
Jan was heavily influenced by surrealism and the Czech avant-garde art scene. His work often deals with themes of unconscious, the grotesque, and the uncanny. In Alice, these influences shine through in the form of nightmarish imagery and an overall sense of disorientation and discomfort. Obviously. So, yeah, it did its job. He's a master of stop motion, using the technique extensively in Alice. He animated objects such as stuffed animals, skeleton creatures, and other oddities, blending them seamlessly into live action sequences. This created an otherworldly feeling where the boundaries between reality and imaginations are fluid and constantly shifting.
Well, I mean, he definitely hit the nail on the head with the disorientation and discomfort and stuff. And I feel like having been a child myself, I could see how being thrust into that world would have been such a fearful experience and stuff.
But also kind of fun.
To an extent, but...
I mean, as a child, we're always looking to escape, our parents in a certain way. We are always looking to have a unique experience and to be a special person. And when you get the chance to go off to a fantasy world, yeah, it's going to be scary, of course, because it's something new. It's undiscovered. It's something you've never been through. But it's also an adventure.
Yeah.
And something new and something unique that makes your life a little special.
True. But I mean, his use of the taxidermy and skeletal creatures and stuff like that definitely give me a sense of I don't know, this nightmarish, feeling and stuff. So
it's not as softer on the edges as most Alice in Wonderland stories. I mean, there are some darker ones. There are some more adult versions of this story. And this one kind of sits a little bit in the middle. It's a lot of fantasy, a lot of whimsical, but also it has a very dark and serious tone to it. which I think that's the reason why I like it so much, honestly.
Yeah.
And I just think it was a very creative way to retell this story.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great use of, funding and materials that you could easily find and afford.
Yeah.
So I think it was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, as it stands as a film of that stature and stuff, I think he did a really good job, for sure.
But you hate it, huh?
It's not my cup of tea. It's just, it's so avant-garde that, I don't know, it's hard for me to really be present for the whole story, you know what I mean?
Just a little too past you, huh?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, I get that. I understand. It's not every movie we watch or you watch or whenever is going to be your cup of tea. It's not going to be your favorite movie instantly. This is just, I have a very deep connection with this movie because I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this movie. I have seen this movie countless of times because it's just, I don't know, I just enjoy it so much. It's just something that inspires me. It's off the wall. It has a lot of twists and turns. Even though you are very familiar with the tale and the story and the fable, the way, what's his name? Jan?
Mm-hmm.
The way Jan retold it is unique and unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's the good thing about film. Film is subjective.
It is.
Or art in general is subjective. So.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great and wonderful thing.
Yep.
And this is just an example of something very unique and wonderful that, may torture others, but brings me joy. So.
Well, I'm glad other people suffering, and you can find some, respite.
Sometimes,
Anyways. So that's the episode.
Alice.
That is Alice.
That's Alice. You definitely it's just Alice. It's 1988 by Alice from 1988. Jan
Švankmajer.
Švankmajer.
Yeah.
Something.
I want to say
that American school system really letting us down right now.
True.
Sorry.
I want to say we found this on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
As always, go check it out because, that's what we're here for. We're always trying to enlighten people and
encourage you to try new things.
Yeah. So, what else have we got?
That's it for now. I mean, we're gonna get back at it. I don't think we're doing anything for the holidays this year, which is fine. So we should be back at it and continue to post things every week or so.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Next week's episode, we are watching
Night of the Creeps.
Ooh.
Which is another one of my favorites. Different vibe completely. Just a big old 180, like as I do, as I do.
I've never seen it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard of it, but I've never seen it. So I'm excited to see that.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of good movies coming out soon. Nosferatu.
Oh, we have to make an intermissions about Terrifier 3.
Oh, Terrifier 3.
We went and saw that while we were taking a break.
It, yeah.
Yes.
So we'll make an intermissions episode about that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're huge Art the Clown fans and Damien Leone, so we'll definitely put that out. Definitely going to be going to see Nosferatu when it comes out.
Oh yes, I'm so excited.
Let's see what else. We're brainstorming new ideas for stickers and stuff.
Yes, I am. I have to work on that.
We're working on getting our set put together for our video.
Or actually YouTube.
Yeah.
We'll still make podcast. We're still going to make the podcast, but you'll be able to see us talk for some reason.
Yeah.
Because if you want to see us talk, I mean,
Well, let's just be honest, because it's a lot easier to pay attention when you're watching someone.
Yeah, I guess.
So we're excited to do that either way.
Yep.
So, as always, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are most likely going to be pulling away from Twitter.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I actually just found out today that there's a new social media app called Blue Sky, and I might be checking that out here shortly.
Okay.
And we may be, starting a new account on there for the podcast. And then, as always, we have our website, www.animatedandwatch.com, where you can check out all of our cool things, podcast, all of our media, stuff like that. So that's all we had for today.
Yep.
So, as always, stay spooky.
Yep. Bye.